Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 181 of the Cognitive Podcast. Oh, let's roll right down into things right away here. It's nice to have you all back. Your comments are welcome. You can comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can go to our group on Ravelry. Let's get into warm thanks because I just feel thankful. I wanted to thank Knit One Pug 2 for reminding me that it was our own Carmen T, as in Trinidad, who gave us all those beautiful crossbody granny square bags at CFR 2023. I also wanted to thank our Knit One Pug 2 for letting me know that the arm strap of that bag is done in a crocheted seed stitch. Now, the really exciting thing is I also get to thank our Carmen because she got in touch with me because she heard that I was working on one of the crossbody bags. She actually sent me a link to a YouTube, which I will get to. I haven't had the chance to get to it yet, for how she made hers, and she also sent me a link to her Ravelry page on this. Now, she is using a pattern from a British crafter who charges about $5 and something for it. I got the same pattern from an American who charged $1.80, I think. Now, to be honest, though, it's really in the details how you do this bag, because the 4-square tiny fanny pack type of bag is out there, that people have been doing this kind of bag for a long time. In the basic structure, you take 3 squares, granny squares of any type you like, 3 across, and you sew them together that way. And then you take another square and you attach it to the bottom of the middle square. Okay, then you fold that one up. So now you've got 2 single squares that are folded against each other, and you have these 2 single squares sticking out. Those 2 ones that are sticking out, you fold them into triangles, and essentially what you get, it's a croissant-shaped purse made out of 4 squares. And this is kind of a truism out there in crochet land, to be honest. There's probably a million free versions of this out there. The other shape that is popular that way, I think it's 13 squares, and it's a larger bag that has a sort of triangle cut out of the middle of the top on both sides because of the shapes of the squares. And I think it's 13 squares. And you just substitute in any squares you like. So these guys are out there. What makes Carmen so great is that she really put good hardware on it, hardware that you can get 10 sets of on Amazon for $11. But good hardware, let's be honest, D-rings. It's very nice stuff. And she does a liner, and she puts a zipper on it. I mean, hers is just beautifully made. Now, she was telling me she hand sews everything. All right, so when we get down to my version of it, you will find that I don't. But there is a considerable amount of hand sewing in the body part at least. I haven't gotten on to the strap yet. But Carmen wants us to do a class on this, but at CFR 10 I might add, but she's not sure she wants to teach it. So she wanted to kind of schmooze Ariane into teaching it. I'm not sure how this is going to go, because I'm not volunteering anybody to teach a class. That's a certain kind of oomph you have to have. Minerva has just jumped into my lap, so things are better already. But at any rate, I do think every year we've had a sort of common pattern at the CFRs that we've all worked on. Last year, It was the Abba's, I have such a Philadelphia accent, the cowl that we did, which was sock yarn scraps, because we did a mini skein trade. I hope, again, we do mini skein trading, because it's just an easy thing to do. I also hope we just have a yarn donation table. Anybody who wants to drop off yarn and people can take it or leave it. So, a sort of yarn giveaway of stuff you want to get out of your stash. And at the end of it, one of us will take it for a charity. I think Jasmine Knitmore took it last year for her kids group that she was teaching. And that's terrific, Jasmine. By the way, if you're listening, of course you are. I love you. And, that's great. If you want to take our leftover yarn again this year, I'm so happy to have that done, because really there's not going to be a better cause than to teach new knitters and crocheters, is there? But at any rate, I'm thinking that this crossbody bag may be the pattern of the year this time. And, if push comes to shove, we've got really 3 good classes right now between Emily, Stephanie, and Jasmine. So I don't know if we even need a 4th class, if there's going to be the energy for that. But I'm thinking in the evenings, I have no problem after we've all gone to dinner Friday night, Saturday night, I have no problem teaching people how to do granny squares. I'm sure a lot of us would be able to do that. And I think the idea is, if you can make 4 granny squares in the weekend, and believe me, you can. A granny square, the most complex one I make, takes me maybe 15 minutes. So, an hour of granny squares. And then, by the way, I'm speaking in worsted weight because I'm going for a 6-inch square here. 5 colors, 6-inch squares. I believe how I've been doing it for my cardigan. Yes, I'm looking at the squares. Okay. So, that's 15, 20 minutes a square. Now, if things were really fun, we could trade squares. That if people are bringing yarn they want to get rid of, that means on the spare yarn table, people can just pick up any weight, any size yarn they want to pick up. So you can make DK weight squares. You can make worsted weight, size 3 or size 4 squares for crocheters. You could make these squares from just yarn people are donating. There would be nothing wrong with that. And we can all trade squares, which could be a lot of fun. And so who knows what bag you're going to walk away from this with. And I'm going to come back to that because I'm going to be talking about the crossbody bag more below. But this does lead me to mention the other great thing Carmen told me is our beloved Orange County group will be coming back this year in full force, so I hear, so I hope, because they are wonderful. I have to say, we had several groups really represented last year, and it was kind of nice. We had the Northern California contingent, and they've been more or less at most of the CFRs, I think. And then we also had the OC group who were at my meditation and knitting retreats. That's where they came into the game and then started coming to CFR. And we had the LA County Spinning Guild, Greater LA Spinning Guild, and they have been amazing. All these groups were so supportive in their own ways. So I'm looking forward to getting the gang back together one more time, which reminds me to say that the link to the Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10 for 2024 is right underneath the warm thanks. You can see it says all info is right here in caps with here in blue. That's the link. It'll take you over to the info thread on Ravelry, which after this episode I'm going to need to catch up a bit. So you can see I mentioned the group knitting pattern is probably going to be this one. And that means I have to publish some links to that so you all can get it if you want it. But this is a pretty basic pattern. It's essentially 4 granny squares in any weight yarn you want. I wouldn't suggest sock weight. I'd go for DK minimum. But, you can make this any size you want. If you have sport, make some sport weight. It might have to be a little bit bigger. It's going to be kind of teeny tiny. But I would think DK, you're probably going to get about 5-inch squares. Worsted, you're going to get 6-inch. Bulky, who knows? Whatever size you want, because you can get a zipper for it, or you can just use a magnetic button, whatever you want. So meanwhile, what's on my hooks and needles, speaking of all this? Well, I finished Felix the Fox, my Wooble kit. And that's good because I need to make some corrections. Last week I was a little bit rushed, as I am this week. This is my life. But I finished Felix, and you can see a picture of him. He is not as clear, I guess, as their cover photo, but I'm not a professional either. Felix was terrific, and I'm now a big fan of the Woobles, and that's why I want to correct some of the things. I've been looking at other people's reviews of the Woobles. I've been reading people's reviews and such. And there's my own review. Right off the top, if they're all like Felix the Fox, these are great kits. It was phenomenal. In the show notes, you'll see a picture of Felix looking straight back at you, and he's now my desk monitor. I've got him on my main decorative desk next to the beautiful paperwork, watching me as I record this. I just had such a good time with him. Now, all the beginner Woobles are the shape of Felix. That is that kind of sphere. It's not a perfectly geometric sphere, but you know what I mean. And they have the safety eyes. So you're going to get those skills. And if you can make that sphere, like you can download the pattern. It comes with the kit, the downloadable pattern. So at that point, once you have the sphere, you're pretty good to go. If you can make that sphere, you can make a lot of things. You don't need to rely on the Wooble kits for all your ideas. I could see this going in 1,000 ways. I look at it and I think, panda bears and birds and dogs. I think the one she's missed is a pug. She has a Shiba Inu, which seems like an odd choice as a pattern. Whereas I'm looking at it and going, that is such a natural to make a pug out of. You just make Felix in a sort of fawn color with no tummy patch, and then you put a black nose on him, black yarn to make his nose. And I would embroider the black floss nose on top of that. But point is, there's just stuff you could go on and on with this. You could make just about any animal you want. The sky's the limit. Now, I did put a picture in of all my leftovers from the kit because the kit was very generous. When you look at it, you will see I never played yarn chicken anywhere. I always was comfortable that I had enough of my supplies. Now, when you look at it, it looks like I don't have too much orange left over because the orange did a lot of work. As you can see from Felix, the orange is the sphere, the nose, the ears, the tail, and she has you leave these huge tails on the pieces when you're sewing them on, which is good. You should listen to her, because she shows you how to weave the needle back and forth through the body to tangle the yarn in the body. So these pieces aren't coming loose and they aren't coming off. Really, really a nice technique, but every technique in these videos worked for me, except her one on changing color I found a little weird, but it doesn't matter at this point. I know how to change color. I'm assuming the rest of you figured it out because there's a lot of people online with Woobles that are completed who aren't complaining about that. In all those videos, there's going to be one that I'm going to say, I'm not sure I'm following that. But really, changing colors in yarn is not what I'd call a huge issue, particularly working on a piece this small. At any rate, there was no yarn chicken. There was no shortage. 3 stitch markers was more than enough. The safety pin style clip marker, thank you for not skimping and giving us those idiotic broken ring ones that always fall out. Those were really great. Metal tapestry needle, thank you for not giving us a cheap plastic needle. I just think they really got everything in this right. I will get down to the issue of the hook in some of the kits, but my hook was great. I thought it was a very ergonometric hook and did really well. Way more stuffing than I needed. I've got the stuffing all over the floor by my feet mixed in with the Wednesday stuffing. Just really, really good. The one recommendation I would say when you get your first kit, get it from her website, sign up for her emails, and get the free little tin that says Wee Woobly Bits. That is a really nice thing to have. And if you're doing amigurumi, especially if you're going to be dealing with little bitty things like safety eyes and little nibbly bits, you really want that tin. No, you don't need it. You could keep them in the envelope, which reseals very nicely, sure. But I have to say, I thought that tin was just a genius thing. If you go to her website, you will see other tins for sale. She does sell the tins for different things, particularly with Christmas kits and all sorts of things. She has a separate tin for the eyes. She has a separate tin for your stitch markers. You can buy 3 different separate tins. The only time you get that particular one that is blue and says Wee Woobly Bits is the freebie when you buy your first kit. I would recommend that. She also sells little scissors. Really almost anything you want is on that site somewhere. There are times I thought the site was not as well organized as it could be, but I found everything I needed. I just kind of had to hunt and peck. I do wish she would break down all the kits into a few more categories. I found myself researching when I was trying to find something I liked. That is a pretty small complaint. So let me give you my other corrections. I was kind of delusional. Last time I said the hook is unmarked but measures at 7 millimeters. No, it doesn't. It's a 4 millimeter hook. It's a clean G, as in girl. And after you buy a kit, and actually many of the beginner kits say you don't even have to buy the hook with the kit. They will take $5 off and you get the kit without the hook. The hook is measured, let me try that again. The hook is marked Woobles. I ran it through one of my hook measurers and it said 4.5. No, it's a 4.0. I'm not sure what's going on with my hook measuring thing there, but I was goofy. It is a G as in girl, and if you have a G hook, you don't have to buy the hook with many of these. Do make sure, though. Like when you buy certain of the kits, you don't get the option. The hook just comes with it. It's a good hook. I thought it was a perfectly good hook. Now, the other weird thing, Felix, he's a beginner kit. But when you get to the end, she goes, he's not really a beginner kit. He's a beginner plus because he has a lot of embroidery. Yes, I would agree with that. However, it's a pretty small distinction. He has color changes, though, that I think take him into a different category. Now, when you look at her first kit, which I did buy, and I'm not sure why, because Pierre, I don't know why I bought him, frankly, but Pierre has a few less skills than Felix. So I'm looking at Pierre's bag. I don't see embroidery on the Pierre I'm looking at. Okay, so when you make Felix, you make the sphere, and you do that for Pierre. You put the eyes on, you do that for Pierre. You make a little white tummy, which is a flat piece, and you have a chance there, by the way, to learn the magic circle. She does say, here's the easy way to do it, which is a chain 4 circle, but she does give you a link on the video if you want to go ahead and try the magic circle. I am deeply, deeply glad I did. So, okay, Pierre has that same circle. And you can learn magic circle or you can learn the chain 4 circle there. Her magic circle is the most effective way I've ever seen to do it. So I'm really, really happy. Okay, then you sew that on. So that's a flat piece onto the sphere. That's one of the skills. That's good. Learned it from her. Really like it. And then you make little wings and a little beak. And if you're doing Felix, that is a snout and 2 ears. And they get sewn on it. So now you're sewing a 3-dimensional piece onto another 3-dimensional piece, the sphere. Okay, so that's Pierre and that's Felix. But then on Felix, you have color changes, which it doesn't look like you have on Pierre. And you have embroidery, which it doesn't look like you have on Pierre. So what I'm telling you is, if you're going to have somebody get a starter kit, and you're really concerned that they might be a little overwhelmed by the extra skills of changing yarn color and doing the embroidery, do not get Felix. Felix is just a little extra. I would say get Pierre. Get somebody that simple. I don't know if there are other Pierres. You have to go search the site. That is, are there other things? Probably the bunny. I know there's a bunny rabbit. I'm thinking that might be really, really basic. Okay, the other thing you need to know when you go to the site, there are a lot of add-on kits. They're like $5, and it's for the bunny. You can make a little hat and a carrot. Okay, and they tell you these are not beginner kits. And I would especially say that about the Harry Potter series and perhaps the Snoopy series. The Harry Potter kit, the actual Harry Potter amigurumi, that doesn't look very beginner to me. That looks like it's got a few extra skills on it. So I would be pretty careful with that. Some of these pieces that have a lot of add-ons, they're not actually beginners. Now, if you're really excited about Harry Potter and you want to do that, sure. It's as good as any of the others. I will say there are a lot of Harry Potter amigurumis running around on Ravelry. Some of them are free. So would I bother to get an amigurumi from her? From Woobles of Harry Potter? I might. I know it's going to be well put together. But yeah. Okay, food for thought. But if you're looking for a real beginner thing, you really probably don't want to quite do Felix. You might want to look at something that looks a little less embroidered and that doesn't seem to have color changes like Pierre the Penguin. So if you have like a younger person starting out, or your husband, who's just, you're forcing to do this for your review. I'm kidding. I just saw somebody who did that. The husband was really great. But at any rate, just food for thought. These are not equally beginner sometimes. Although I have to tell you, Pierre's pretty basic. I mean, really, the embroidery was really easy. And color changing, that's not hard. And the things where you change color, the tail and the ears came out looking really good, even if I didn't quite follow her video on changing colors. So that's what you need to know about that. The patterns on Ravelry have all been withdrawn except for Pierre. I think Pierre is close to the designer's heart, and she sees him as a kind of advert. So she does let that pattern stay on Ravelry. I don't think that's accidental. She's got some pretty shrewd business partners now, including two of the people from Shark Tank. So I think she's really conscious of what she's doing. I did preserve the link to my unboxing video, so you can see that. I did also say, let's see what else. Oh yes, I was saying last time, well, there's no double or treble. These are American terms. I think in British it's treble, and I have no idea what you guys call what we call a treble. She does have videos in some of the kits that have double crochet. I know that. I came across one of them kind of accidentally. So, yes, she does teach other stitches. I do know on Gertrude the Llama, who's an intermediate kit, which is a kit I'd like to get, to be honest. She teaches you how to do baubles. I'd really like to just see that video. Will I pay $30? That is the question. But I'm kind of curious what the difference is now for her between an intermediate and a beginner plus. So she does give you other stitches. The other thing you really do need to know is that she has a YouTube channel called The Woobles, no surprise there. And those are free, those videos, and they're great. And if you think you don't get enough left-hand instructions in the kit, go to the YouTube channel. They're all broken down. Here is the left-hand version. Here is the left-hand version. There's a million left-hand versions. So if you're worried about that, you can get it on the YouTube channel. I do have a link to that in the show notes. I didn't notice the left-handed stuff going by in Felix, but it may well be there, and I was just being kind of lame. The other thing I was a bit lame about is the yarn. It turns out it is 80% cotton and 20% nylon, I think. When you're handling it, you'll be able to feel that it doesn't feel like nylon. That would be rough and kind of scratchy and way more stretchy. It is a good yarn for what it does. It really does the job as a beginner. And the amigurumi come out with a sort of nice solidity to them, and they're soft enough. Also, let's face it, they're washable. I'm not sure what'll happen to the stuffing, but I'm not that worried about it because she gets you to close the thing up pretty solidly, and the holes are very small. So I do like that. Now, I've been looking at reviews, and there were a few quality control issues reported. I'm a little skeptical of this. I'm going to be honest. I saw one crocheter, I think her name is Elise Rose, and she has a channel and 15,000 followers. I mean, she's big time. She's really doing the job. Good crocheter. She did a review where she had her husband learn to do a wooble. They were doing the Harry Potter wooble. This is not a starter wooble, as she points out. And I don't know if the instructions would have warned her of that, but I think it counts a lot that her husband really wanted to do this. So, if you force Pierre down somebody's throat and they don't want to do a blue penguin, you have to let the beginner pick their stuff. But I do think the Harry Potter one has the add-on scarf. Now, those of us who crochet are looking at the scarf like, well, that's no big deal. But there's going to be some sewing. There's embroidering his eyes, embroidering the glasses. So this would not be my starter one. And she had an interesting QC issue. The Harry Potter kit has a hook, and the handle of the hook, the ergonometric handle, says Harry Potter on it. So they give you a special branded hook, She said the hook was rough, and her husband does some kind of job I don't understand where he has the equipment. He actually studied the hook and said, this is rough. She gave him a regular G hook from her collection. I think it was a Clover special edition of something, and it was much smoother. So they examined the hooks under a microscope, another instrument I don't recognize, and they say, yeah, this hook is really rough. Just to make this clear, the hook that came with my kit, Felix the Fox, was perfectly smooth and very nice to work with. So I don't know if there's some issue with those Potter hooks, that they have some kind of quality control issue. That certainly makes me do a double take. But I don't know if you can buy the Harry Potter kit and leave the hook out. Probably not, because it's branded. But that's the one QC issue, is if you're getting a Potter kit, you might want to pay attention to that hook. Also, the add-ons to the Hogwarts kits are scarves, and there's a little head wig. Head wig looks really easy. Apparently she's not. She's teeny, and she's got 2 wings you got to sew on, which made me do a double take. I'm looking at the other patterns on Ravelry because I'm going, that's too much work for a head wig. It's too hard. It's only a $5 kit, but really I don't plan to suffer for Harry Potter. Okay, the other QC issue, I was looking at reviews, and one person said I was missing some of the pieces. I'm pretty impressed by that, because they really went out of their way to give me extra pieces. The other thing I'm impressed by is there is a handmade element here. Every one of these kits is started. The way they start it, they do the magic circle with 6 single crochet stitches in it. That is the foundation of every beginner wooble, the sphere-shaped ones like Felix and Pierre. Are these consistent problems? I don't know, because to me, if someone's taking the time to do that beginning and then to stick a safety pin type stitch marker in 3 of those 6 stitches, that is a lot of custom work. To me, this sounds like they gotta have good quality control. So, quality control, it happens. And of course, I wouldn't worry about these people taking stuff back. But there you go. In progress in the stash toss. Well, first of all, it's a little disappointing because now I'm 23 skeins in versus 35 out. And I'll tell you what happened there as I go through this. No action really on the 5th CFR 23 sock yarn cowl, but I got very interested in a sun hat. I just said, I really want a sun hat. And now that I crochet, why shouldn't I have a sun hat? And I mentioned this last episode when I talked about something I really like, and I talked about the wire to stiffen hat brims. Because I thought, this is getting silly. I'm a crocheter. I should be able to make a bucket hat or some kind of summer hat. And I looked at the Clio wide brim fedora. This is by Make and Do Crew, Jess Copham and Company. And I looked at a bunch of hats and I thought, okay, she's got her own business. She's really serious. Let's go with this. So I downloaded the pattern for like $6. And I started swatching for it. Well, all right, she's using a bulky yarn. I was bringing a size 4. She's using a size 5. I was bringing a worsted weight to the table. She's using a Lion brand yarn that is polyester. I don't want polyester on my head in the summer. I really don't. Now, you can argue, isn't it kind of bamboo-like in its effect? I'm not going there. I just said cotton hat. I want to be able to wash this and rinse it off and all that sort of thing, particularly if I'm bouncing around on the ocean or something like that. So I realized I wanted Peaches and Cream or Sugar and Cream, which are pretty much the same company now. Okay, and I wanted a pretty color. I got Coral Rose, and I liked it. And I looked at her yardage, and I said, well, I'll probably hold this double. And so I bought twice as much as I needed. So this leads to another project. and I'll come back to that. But meanwhile, I started swatching this, and I found out she's using a size 5 bulky yarn on an eye hook. I tried 2 strands. I tried 1 strand. I am down, to get her gauge, I am down to 1 strand of a size 4 yarn on a size G hook, I believe. Yeah. So let me tell you how glad I am that I swatched. I am not known for my swatching either, but I am now. And something really likable about this pattern is you start making the crown of the hat, no surprise there. And you can see a picture of the crown as far as I've gotten it. And what you're going to do is you're going to get it out to 90 stitches, which will be 15 stitches between each of those markers. And the markers are where you do 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. Okay, and that works out very nicely. The instructions are very clear, how to place the markers, how to use them. And you can see I have purples where the increases are, and the green is the beginning of the round. And then there's a picture of me wearing it on my head, pretending it's a finished crown, which it's not. It's got at least 5 more rows to go. But I'm quite liking it. All right, here's what I like. You get 7 rows in. So you are at 42 stitches around, and she makes you stop and measure it. Thank you, Jessica Copham. If I had not done this, I would be, oh my gosh, I can't imagine how big the crown of my hat would be. As it is, it looks like it's pretty on par for what I want it to be. I'm not sure. Again, it's the crown. The crown is smaller than the circumference of the very top of your head. The hat will broaden out as it goes down, I believe. But I am happy that she makes you do that gauge check, because I seriously spent all day today redoing that thing because I kept going down hooks, losing strands of yarn, everything. So, what I would tell you is, please, if you're going to do this hat, do not lose that moment where you can check your swatch, which is the center of your crown. Now, of course, what this led to is, oh gosh, I bought extra yarn. In fact, I think I'm going to have like 2.5, 3 skeins extra of this beautiful sugar and cream. So I said, well, what am I going to do with it? And I thought, well, I always just make coasters. Well, I've got 1 million coasters, and I still have old little half-used skeins of sugar and cream around. I don't need to make more coasters. I don't need more dishcloths or dish rags. And I said, what's wrong with me? Just make a bag. Make a summer bag to go with your summer hat. So I went looking around for that, and you won't see it yet in the show notes, but I did find a pattern. So I went over to Joann's, and I started looking at heavier yarn to make the bottom of a bag. And I noticed most of the big tote bag type things are in heavier yarns. They're in polyesters that are very thick and usually super bulky, which I love because I don't want to spend a lot of time on the bag either. And the bag, I don't care about gauge at all. What I care about is I want to use this stuff up, get it out of my stash. So I was at Joann's, as I mentioned, and I found Bernat makes a macrame yarn. At the end of an aisle, they have this sort of heavy-duty workhorse craft yarns that are not necessarily knitting yarns. And I was looking at the macrame types, and I got a Bernat. Now, the bag I'm looking at is about 400 yards. I got this Bernat heavyweight yarn. I'm trying to see where I have it here. Yeah, Bernat macrame yarn inspirations, 8.8 ounces, 250 grams. It's a recycled cotton, so I kind of love that. What is not to love in that? And it is 100% mixed fibers, cotton, polyester, viscose, and acrylic. So hopefully it's going to be hard wearing. It certainly looks, it's a little softer than a jute would be, but I like it. I got it in a gray brown. They're recommending a US 13 to knit it, but fortunately I will be crocheting it, and they want me to have a 10 millimeter hook. That's a US N or P, although people aren't using the hook letters anymore, even in America, which is kind of nice. So a 7 millimeter hook, which makes a lot of sense to me. It's a super bulky category 6. And the key thing here is the yardage, which is 44 yards. So I thought, that's a pretty good bag bottom. If I need another one of those, I'll go back for it. It isn't cheap. It was, I think, about $10. But then I like that I can double up my washcloth yarn, my sugar and cream. And I have to admit, I picked up a teal and a lighter green and thought stripes, would look quite dashing with this. So that will be another one. Hopefully these skeins are going to go in and out of the stash fairly quickly. Meanwhile, the Crochet Block Experiments, the granny square bag that I was talking about above in relation to our buddy Carmen and CFR 10. I've been doing just one little bit of that every weekend because I just get kind of overwhelmed by it. There's no reason I have these skills. My sewing machine is set up on my desk, so that was no issue. You may remember last week I just sewed the outer edge, the bottom edge of the liner, because there's no reason I'm going to do that by hand. That's perfectly doable with a machine. And I also took my template plastic that I got last week and I cut out a template. So if we're doing this at CFR 10, there's a few possibilities. First, I used just a random fat quarter that I had in my stash that I bought at Joann's. I bought a bunch of them, just a block. And it was perfect for the job, which was very nice. So yes, there is a Joann Fabrics near where we have CFR. So we can do a trip over there to pick up some fat quarter squares if people want to try this game. But I'm going to bring the template to CFR 10. So if you have spare fabric, any piece that you think would make a good liner. Now Carmen had suggested you just use old clothes. I have to say, I think using an old t-shirt would be great for this, or an old shirt, just anything, an old tea towel that you want to get rid of, anything you want that would be a good purse liner. So I got excited this week and made the template, and then I decided I was going to install the zipper, and I didn't want to do it by hand. Now I did not do this as nicely as Carmen does hers, because I tried to get away like an idiot without folding the upper edge of my fabric liner, which was dumb. So eventually I ripped out one seam twice, folded the thing over and finger pressed it for 1/4 inch, and then used my sewing machine to attach the zipper. And that left the two edges on either side of the zipper open and loose. And I said, okay, but in the middle of this, you've got a zipper that closes. And then I tucked the whole thing into my bag. You can see the pictures, including Minerva is at the bottom, very happily lying next to me. And I pinned it all in where it belongs, and it looks great. So really next week, I think that's just going to get the hand sewing where I sew through the liner and the crochet of the bag. This is much easier than it may sound at this point. This was all really ridiculously easy. Now, Carmen gave me a call and said, hey, I didn't hear from you. I texted you and sent you the video. Still haven't watched her video because it's been a crazy busy weekend. But I'm kind of working this out as I go. Now, Carmen's video may make this a lot easier, I'm hoping. And I will probably sit down and render all this into a recipe of sorts using her video. But this is not hard to do. It is more time consuming. And because I'm sort of getting overwhelmed at places because I have so many things going on right now, I'm just doing it one step every weekend, and that is working just great. Speaking of one step every weekend, there is my Granny Square cardigan, which I'm using the Lakeside cardigan, also Make and Do Crew, as a model. I decided that I do need to go to 10 blocks wide for the 2 strips in the back that are the only long strips. They go right across the back and from wrist to wrist. The reason I decided this was I could not balance it with the back and front panels any other way. So yeah, we're going to have very long arms on this baby, and that will probably mean relatively short ribbing, or it might look a little bizarre. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sort of looking for solutions on that. But one of the ways I'm going to suck up space on this is going up the inside left panel straight around the neck and down the inside right panel with ribbing. I want to put a big wedge of ribbing on this baby and may well put buttons on it. We'll see how warm this is. It's beautiful. And this weekend I had first added an extra square to each row. So now there are 10 square rows. And I am following a pattern of sorts, so there's not too much obvious repetition because I am varying the squares. It takes 68 squares for me for the way I'm doing this. And now I have 5 colors, but the outer color is always cream. But those inner 4, there's actually 24 variations on the way you can combine them. So I'm going to do 2 sets of those 24, and I'm about 42 out of 48 squares. And then there will be the extra 20 squares that will be a little more random, probably, like not as planned as this. But certainly up where people are really going to notice, up towards the top, I'm making sure not to do repeats in any obvious way. I'm trying to do color variation. I'm not going to explain how I'm doing that. You figure it out. But I did so on the 10th block on the 2 rows, and then I did sew the long seam together while watching history videos on YouTube, of all places, some Tudor history stuff that I like. So now I have those rows, the 20 squares, and those are the longest bits, which is really nice to have that finished. That's the longest seam. So then there are 2 panels for the fronts, and those are 2 panels, one on each side of the neck space, and each one is 2 rows of 4. So I pinned it all out, and I believe there's a picture in the show notes. Yes, I pinned out the right side of that, and I pinned them out, laid them out next to the 2 strips that are already sewn together. And then I started on as you face it, it's on your left. It'll be the right side of the sweater. So you can see underneath the 2 strips, I have pinned the 8 blocks. It will be those first 2 rows of the front panels. And they, of course, will be the arms. They will finish the arms for me. Just do the math in your head, kids. I can't go there. And then I have to do the exact same thing on the other side, leaving 2 neck squares open. So there it is. So the project now, I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to do this. I'm not rushing through this sweater because there's a lot of seaming and a lot of finishing work on this. You got to be honest, although God knows making it is easy enough. So now the job is first to sew each one of those rows of 4, to sew the 3 seams there together. So I have a complete strip of 4, and then sew the long seam between the 2 rows of 4, and then attach it to the back 2 rows. And then we can do it all over again on the other side. So you can see why I'm not rushing this, because this will make you nuts if you sit down and try and do all this finishing at once. It's like the blanket's own blanket last year, where you can't sit down and think about doing it all at once. You'll lose your mind. And I'm still doing 1 square a day. So, again, for 68 squares, we're about 41 or 42 squares in. I've lost count, but I have it carefully noted in my notebook. Very easy and nothing to rush on. Lydia's pink socks, Lydia's pinks are actually what they're called. I'm on the foot of the 2nd sock. Good, I want to get this finished. I really like these, and I want my new pair of socks. Vestuary, I'm kind of embarrassed, didn't touch it. The unofficial Wednesday crochet. Let me tell you something. The Woobles really helped me on this. I was just stalled because I felt a little intimidated. After I finished Felix the Fox, I went to Wednesday and I secured the legs to the body, did the body, added the arms. So I'm up to the color change for the neck and then onto the sphere that is the head. There's no challenges there. Everything on that head I've already done on Felix the Fox. Thank you, Justine, to you for that. It's really, really nice. So Wednesday now I just have to sit down and motor through it 1 step at a time the way I did Felix. This is an awful lot of stuff, isn't it? Yeah, I'm probably going to go short on this. Strategy, I'm just going to go back to something that kept coming up this week. I know I've said this before, but again, while I'm talking about overthinking, which I'm not, because I over-talked about overthinking. But again, last week I said, if you're trying to change yourself and change your habit of thinking, you really do need to be keeping track. Well, this week I want to add, you need to be giving yourself rewards. I cannot say this enough. This is one of the most common things I run into as a clinician. My patients come in, they're really depressed, and you say, well, what makes you happy? I don't know. Well, how are you going to be happy if you don't know how to be happy? And then if you push them, they actually do know. but they've just stopped using what they know. And yeah, that is depression. And so while you're clocking yourself, while you're recording what you're doing and keeping track, you have to use rewards with that system. Happy people reward themselves constantly. I know, because today I did all this work and I rewarded myself by planning another project. I cycle on my desk now for 35 minutes a day, which I really am not supposed to be there, but I kind of jumped that gun and I'm happy enough to do it. And I reward myself by updating everything and by, getting the SodaStream stuff going. Okay, you do have to give yourself rewards, and you have to give yourself a lot of rewards. And sometimes the rewards are not what you expect. So, typical day, I get up and I have to do all the finances, but I do it lying in a bubble bath, let's be honest, twice a week. It's an Epsom salt bath. So that's one of my rewards, that I get up and I take a hot bath while I'm working on the family finances. I get up and I see my patients and I do my notes, and because I do my notes as I see my patients, I get a reward of a longer lunch and more time in the evening. I handle email requirements and reports and everything right away, and then I will give myself a foot massage. My day is full of rewards, kids. And I'm rewarding myself now because I'm telling you, look, I'm at 360 miles on my bike desk. I'm so proud of myself. I'm now up to about 4 miles a day. I'm bragging. Yeah, it's a reward, guys. You have to give yourself rewards, but you have to give yourself rewards often. This is not a rarity. And this is a weird thing out of, I think, my late father's generation. My father would say these things like rewards have to be scarce so they have value. No, they don't. No, believe me, my rewards have values, no matter how small they are. Even if it's the feeling of satisfaction at the end of the day, I'm done all my clinical work and I don't have to worry about my patient's well-being because I took care of them. That knowledge is a reward. What I would say instead is you have a scale of rewards. So yes, I don't say, wahoo, I saw my patients, I'm going to Disneyland, although living in Southern California I could, bit of a hike, but still. And expensive. No, you have to remember, you give yourself little rewards, you give yourself big rewards. But yes, you do have to give yourself rewards. You have to do it multiple times a day. If you're a parent, you reward your kids. I don't mean you bribe them. You don't give them something good and then say, go do this thing. You say, go do this thing and here will be your reward. Look, I work every day. I get a paycheck. That's a reward. That's how the system works. It's an adult skill. That's how we get through our job life, is we get rewarded by paychecks, by good annual reviews, whatever. When I see a company going bad, and I've been a manager many times, so I've had the chance, one of the things I see is HR not knowing how to reward. HR becomes this fist of punishment. Managers do the same thing. I remember my last job, the job from Hades, where every time we had a management meeting, it was kick all the managers. So I get my department to succeed, and the boss got angry. She brought in a consultant. He pointed at me and said, we need to be talking to her. She's the only one succeeding. The boss fired that guy, fired the consultant, okay, and said, we don't care what you say. I mean, that's the worst corporation I've ever seen. It's the worst management I've ever seen. It was so appalling. I can't even begin to tell you. But I mean, this is where it goes wrong, that the corporate world has no rewards. And they don't see the obvious rewards: time off, rest, financial bonus. They give you stupid mugs with the company name. Yeah, that makes me feel good. Okay, the idea is we have really lost this. I think American society was founded on these puritanical ideas of self-denial that are just not reasonable. So you do have to have rewards. Look, even a jackass, if you don't give it a carrot now and then, isn't going to move. Okay? So the strategy is, for love of heaven, give yourself rewards. Gemma, how do I do that? Well, do you even know your rewards? If you don't, it's time to make a list. The last time I made a list of my rewards, I had to stop at 250. Rewards are from big to small. From small to big, I don't care. Rewards for me, going to Disneyland, going to Universal Studios, going to Europe. Yeah, you can hear this is the big end. Okay, going to Fiji a few years back. All right, on the small end, foot massage, feelings of gratification, sitting out in the sun between patients for a few minutes on our porch swing, calling a friend, bubble bath. There's a huge range. Crocheting, doing one more step on my cardi or on one of my amigurumi projects that are current. Anything in between. I just bought some glass bottles for my soda stream, whatever. You have to make a list. And when you don't know how to reward yourself, you go to the list. I use my list. Oh, by the way, exercise is on there, as is sex. Just going to say we're all grown-ups here. I'm not going to go into detail on that. At any rate, you have to have a list. You have to know what makes you happy. And you have to use your list. Eventually, you won't need the list as much. If you don't know the list, go to the Women's Comfort book by Jennifer Loudon, male or female. You're going to find stuff in there that you're going to like. Oh, shoot. I'm now at 35 minutes a day. I kind of jumped the gun by 3 days, and I don't care. At about 360 miles, doing about 4 miles a day. So you know that's not a lot, but the difference it's making is amazing. It is a bit of a problem because it did sort of stall my weight loss because I started building muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat. I didn't gain weight, but I certainly didn't lose weight, probably the way I should. If I had any brains, instead of doing my weight, I would be doing my waist. Your waist should be half of your height or less. Mine is still a little on the high end, but we're getting there. In the fluffy books, nothing there, but something I really like. I actually have one thing I really want you to see. Go look at the picture in the show notes. It is the Scrub Daddy sponge. And if you look at the picture to the right, on your right, of the Scrub Daddy, you will see this weird little piece of plastic. That is the Scrub Daddy holder that adheres to the side of your sink. I learned about Scrub Daddy from an Instagram account where this woman goes and cleans the houses of the mentally ill, specifically the depressed. And she's become an expert household cleaner. She does this for free, bless her heart. She is a big fan of the Scrub Daddy. And the Scrub Daddy people love her. They recently took her out to their corporate headquarters. And they gave her this elite tour and put her in a nice hotel. It was very funny. I think they're in Philadelphia. But those episodes on her Instagram were great. Anyway, I found the Scrub Daddy at a Lowe's Hardware while I was looking for the wiring for the brim of the Clio Fedora. And the Scrub Daddy is $3.99. There's also a Scrub Mommy. I don't even know what that means. But I just bought the Scrub Daddy, and next to it there was a little holder that I think was $2.99. And I thought, you know, that holder on the side of the sink is genius because it lets the thing drain. And it's a kind of hard, it feels almost like a hard polyester. But the Scrub Daddy works great. I took it home and I scrubbed out my sinks in our big bathroom because they were getting a little bit of lime deposit buildup. Came right off. Soap scum, everything. So I've gotten to the place now once a week. I take Scrub Daddy and I just roam around the house scrubbing things with him because he's that effective compared to normal cleaning sponges. Now, I have always liked the sponges where one side is a normal sponge and the other side is kind of the Scotch-Brite hard. Yeah, I like Scrub Daddy better. So something I really like, the Scrub Daddy, he seems to be at Lowe's Hardware, but I'm pretty sure he'll be at most hardware places. And yes, I found the holder to be a worthwhile addition to the Scrub Daddy. Put a lid on it, I got a soda stream. Thank you, Chris Ah. And I love it. The only thing I don't like, as I said last week, is all the plastics involved. So this week I went on Amazon and I got some glass bottles, 32 ounces, so like an ounce less than a liter. And I made sure I got them with silicone bumpers, so they're hard to break if you drop, and with sippy tops. So I got myself 2 1-liter glass, actually they're 32-ounce glass bottles, with the bumpers, and also a 16-ounce. And I got those, and so now I'm using the Soda Stream every day. I do 2 liters of iced tea. I make my iced tea in my jars, my mason jars with lids, and with my infusers, and then I take out the infusers and drain the water back in, and get rid of the tea, and then I pour that into my plastic SodaStream bottles, and I add the fizz, and then I recant it into my 32-ounce bottles. What is the update? I'm drinking 2 liters of water a day with the tea in it. No sweetener whatsoever, not even stevia. The SodaStream carbonation does that job for me. I have to tell you, the star of the show is the watermelon mint from Plum Deluxe. That is amazing with carbonation. I have no idea why that works. I also like anything with a strong cinnamon presence. I'm waiting for more pear and cinnamon from Plum Deluxe. I have to be careful because if I make anything with caffeine in it, I will drink a liter of it without thinking twice, and then heaven help my patience. With that in the blather, I don't have a lot to say. I'm growing a mending pile, and all the projects are going very well. Captain, of course, came through her physical just fine last week. Nothing going on in the garden because I'm using money on things like yarn and glass bottles for the SodaStream. Yes, I will eventually replace the SodaStream with the one lone model they have that uses glass. That is my only gripe with the SodaStream. On the calendar, all the usual stuff from the Santa Clarita Valley can be found in the show notes. And there's nothing new going on there. CFR 10, of course, is at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia on September 28th, 2024. And again, another link to the information thread. And Romuel, of course, December 21st to at least the 29th. Possibly I'll take the 30th and 31st off if I can swing it. So Minerva gets the last word, and her last word is cats are communal. I read a good study this week talking about how we look at cats as loners. Turns out they're not. We're wrong. Turns out our model of cats was taken from the defunct European wild cats who were loners. But our cats are not descended from them. Our cats are descended from African wild cats, and they are communal. So all this nonsense about cats not loving us and being loners is wrong. I would like to point out our model of wolves, same problem. We talk about lone wolves and alpha wolves. That's all wrong. Wolves are also deeply communal. So we've got these models wrong. And Minerva wants us to know this because Minerva, of course, has read Benjamin Franklin. She's not from Philadelphia, but I've contaminated her. And she points out Ben Franklin's wise saying, "Let he who drinks alone catch his own horse." In other words, if you're ignoring everybody and you're by yourself, when you need help, you're on your own. And cats know this. So why don't Americans? Americans are always into this macho, isolated, loner, noble. No, that's all ridiculous. It's probably from our history. No, it's not. No, it's not. Even the Puritans, if you want to call them the first white settlers of America who dictated a lot of what is our major culture now, even they believed in the community. You had to go to church. You had to be with your people. Everybody watched everybody else. Where did we get this idiocy of this sort of free will independent loner? Yep, Westerns, Western movies. If you actually know the history of the West, and I've lived here for a lot of my life, there's a lot of people who came out here and died alone. If you want to really see it in action, go read Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. She's the one who wrote Little House on the Prairie. Remember that? My generation does, certainly, and Gen X probably does. But in one of her books, I think it's her last book, her second to last book, I think it's in These Happy Golden Years, she talks about when she goes out to live with this couple because she's a school teacher in a remote town. And the couple have come west, and the wife becomes clinically depressed, being all alone and away from her friends and family. And the husband can't break her out of it. And Laura lives with them, and it's miserable how crazy and depressed this woman is. Now, Laura doesn't call it clinical depression, but Minerva would, and so would I as a mental health clinician. That lots of people came out to the West and went nuts all by themselves. And our history here is full of those stories. Let's not forget the Donner Party, who, if they'd only asked the local Native Americans, the Native Americans kept trying to help them. They have the records of this, which we've ignored until very recently, of course. Okay, the point is, cats are communal, dogs are communal, wolves are communal, horses are communal, llamas are communal. Why do we have this idea that we shouldn't be? Minerva knows better. She wants you to understand that cats deserve your love and they want to be communal with you. You can see her there. She's just she's loafing, I think is the proper way to put it. She's being a loaf with a tail between my ankles because she would like me to stay there and not go wherever I was going because she'd like, oh, by the way, that bag you see in the top left, that's her food bag. She's giving me a strong hint there. But she is communicating with me. Minerva wants you to know cats are communal and so are we. Having said that, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.